Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. How is everybody? I hope everybody is doing good. Today I would like to discuss the warning signs of sexual abuse in a child and also the signs that somebody could potentially be harming a child. Most of my information today will come from RAINN.org. That is RAINN.org. They are a organization that helps in bringing awareness as well to sexual childhood abuse or any kind of abuse. And they're a pretty good website. They have a lot of great information, warning signs and what to watch out for. They have, some really great statistics on the subject. So if you get a chance, head on over to their website today and go check it out. They do have a Facebook page to follow as well. I'm also going to leave the National Sexual Assault Hotline on this video, and the number for that is 1-800-656-HOPE. Or if you don't feel comfortable calling, you can also chat online at online.rain.org. So if somebody you know who is being sexually abused, you can, confidentially report to them, your suspicions and all of that. And if you don't, like I said, feel comfortable talking, you can also chat. You can also go there and to help, get advice if you have been sexually abused. They have great resources that can help, with, counseling and anything else like that you may need. So like I said, go ahead and head over to their website and just check it out because it's pretty amazing. The warning signs of sexual abuse. Every 8 minutes, a government official is responding to another report of child sexual abuse. Learning the warning signs is, very important because it is often the first step to protecting a child who is in danger. And it's not always easy to spot sexual abuse because perpetrators are so good at hiding what they do. Just listen to your instincts. If you notice something that isn't right or somebody is making you feel uncomfortable with the actions that they are doing, 9 out of 10 times, your instincts are going to be right. And that's why they always say trust your gut. Because in situations like this, you definitely need to be trusting yourself that what you're seeing, is it sexual abuse? Could, this child be sexually, being sexually abused? Or could this person be sexually abusing a child? Because, following that gut instinct, like I say, even just reporting it, if you have suspicions of it, report it because it's going to be investigated. Now, how deep into an investigation is going to happen, I don't know, but I know that it will be investigated. And if you're wrong, you haven't done no harm. It's important to talk to your child or children if you suspect that there's a possibility that they could be being abused. It doesn't hurt to, ask them questions about it. And even if they say no, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. A lot of kids don't tell right away. And part of that being is because they're scared. They're confused. I went over this a little bit on my last video. 93% of children under the age of 18 who are sexually abused know, love, and trust the person that is abusing them. And that makes it all the more confusing. Because if somebody, you love or trust is saying that it's okay, why wouldn't it be? This is coming from the mind of a child. Like, why wouldn't it be okay? And a lot of times abusers will threaten children with things like, they will harm them, or they will harm family members, or they will, do it to other family members as well if they tell. Which, if they're doing it to you, then there's always a possibility that it's happening to somebody else within the family too. Especially if it's a family member abusing somebody. Children may be ashamed of themselves. I know that was a big issue for me. I was ashamed of what was happening to me. I didn't want anybody to know what was happening to me because I felt disgusted with myself. Not even at him. I was just disgusted that, it's not normal for your dad to want to, engage in sexual activities with you. And if I told, what would people think about me? I had convinced myself that if I told anybody, again, as I got older, they would think less of me. They would think, wow, that girl is disgusting. Like, she let her dad have sex with her, even though it wasn't anything that I had control over, but that's just what I was thinking. And that was probably the hardest part, was worrying about what people would say about me, worrying about people looking at me different, because of what was happening to me. And I was angry. I was, I was a ball of a mess, which is understandable. Sometimes they are afraid of losing their abuser, which I was really afraid of losing my dad because I loved him. He was my dad. Even though he was abusing me, I was, like I've said before, used to what was happening to me, that it didn't faze me. It wasn't affecting me anymore, or so I thought. I'm used to this. What difference is it going to make now? Like, something like that. It's just, children are afraid of tearing their families apart. I know I was really afraid of, like, my brothers losing my dad because I know how much they loved him and looked up to him and how much they needed him. Because every child deserves a mom and a dad. And if I would have told, I would have, took that from them. And I didn't want to do that. I was afraid of what my family would think. I was afraid, would they believe me? Would they believe him? Would they, hate me? There's a lot of factors that go into, like, a reason, why a child won't tell. And a lot of abusers also brainwash children. And I know that I was definitely brainwashed. I was brainwashed into believing that he loved me. I clung to him telling me that he loved me. Because as my dad, I knew that he had to have loved me and that this was just his way of showing his love for me. And, I know I had two brothers living in the home, and now that I look back on it, I realize, he did flower me with more attention than what he did my brothers. He made me feel special. He would bring me gifts home, just out of the random blue. He would, I was the only one that was allowed to sleep in his room, obviously, things like that. Like, he made me feel special. And, that to me was everything. And I really clung on to looking for his love. Like, I needed his love. And that's how it was. you know, and there was never a time that I didn't love him. I loved my dad very, very much. And that's just what made everything so much harder for me, and but so much easier for him. It was easier for him to get away with what he was doing because he knew that I wholeheartedly believed that he loved me. I mean, I look back on it now, you know, I'm going to be 30 years old, and it's now that I know what he was doing was wrong. Like, I can't believe that I let myself fall into that. But I mean, that's the innocence of being a child. You trust who you're supposed to trust. And that's one of the hardest parts of a child telling. The physical warning signs of children being sexually abused, there's not any like specific, each case is different. Some kids might not even show any warning signs at all, and some might. But here's a list of some that, some things that you can watch out for. Okay, sexually transmitted infections. Obviously, if a child is coming down with something that you normally get through sexual intercourse, of any kind, then they've been sexually abused by someone. And then it comes down to finding out who that someone is. Signs of trauma to the genital area, such as unexplained bleeding, bruising, or blood like on the sheets, or blood within, your underwear, like their underwear. I know when I was 11, I thought one day that I was starting my period because I had blood inside my underwear. And this had happened actually numerous times, but at this point I had just went through started going through like sexual education at school, and we learned about like the different ways that our body are going to start to grow as we mature. And so I thought I was starting my menstrual cycle, and I'm like, oh man, like what do I do? Because my mom wasn't around for me to talk to her about it. So I just kind of, I like kept it to myself. And like I had told, one of my younger brothers, like, I think I might be becoming a woman, because that's just what I thought. But, come to find out, it was just because I, had been hurt down there that I had started bleeding. Some behavioral signs that you can watch out for is sexual behavior that is inappropriate with children. Now, I have done some research on this, and one of the best ways, that children actually bring out like sexual abuse without anybody really even thinking twice about it is with like Barbie dolls. I mean, I used to make my Barbie dolls do some pretty, bad stuff that I probably shouldn't have known, like, what it was. And, I know a lot of, child psychologists and stuff who deal with sexually abused children. When they bring children in, they will actually use like Barbie dolls or baby dolls to help have the child demonstrate, where did so-and-so touch you? Can you show me what so-and-so made you do? And they will use the dolls to actually interact with the children to, eventually get them to talk about what, has happened to them. So, I mean, if you see any warning signs with inappropriate sexual behavior in children, and that even includes, like your child wanting to show off their private areas to people. Like, that's not normal. Like, a child shouldn't want to be pulling down their underwear, flashing around their genital area. There's a bunch of stuff that could go with that. Bedwetting, if your child has already outgrown it. So let's say your child hasn't wet the bed since they were 4, and then all of a sudden they're 6 and they're back to bedwetting. Like, that's a good indication that something is definitely not right, and they could be possibly being sexually abused. Not wanting to be left alone with certain people, or being afraid to be away from their primary caregiver, especially if this is new behavior. your child is going to indicate to you when they don't feel comfortable being around somebody. And that could be even, the babysitter coming over. And I know, kids have their normal temper tantrums, like, I want to go with you, Mom, trust me, mine do, They're like, oh, we don't want to go to the babysitters, which, normally is my mother-in-law because I don't really trust anybody else with my children. But they'll be like, we don't want to go to grandma's, And I know it's, not because she's sexually abusing them, but it's because they don't want to go. They get bored over there, And so there's a difference between like a child not wanting to go somewhere because, they would rather just be with you or be at home, like in their own home setting and not having to go somewhere else. But you could definitely tell if a kid is like screaming and kicking and crying, like, I don't want to go to, Dad's house this weekend, or I don't want to go to my mom's, I don't want to go to my, things like that, then there's a good sign that they're probably being sexually abused, if not by that person, then somebody that is living within the home. Tries to avoid removing clothing to change or bathe. Now, some children who have been sexually abused will have a fear of, taking their clothes and stuff off in front of people. And, at young ages, you're still, giving your child baths and, showers and all that things, and you're helping them get dressed and things like that. And they'll try to avoid any possibility of, having to take their clothes off in front of, even their mom or, anybody. Emotional signs are excessive talk about or knowledge of sex topics. If your 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, whatever, is coming to you with, things of sexual topics, there's a good chance that they're being sexually abused because nobody that young should know, topics of sex at all. Like, you don't even start learning that stuff in school yet. And, definitely make sure you sit down and you have a talk with them about, like, good touch, bad touch, and, what people shouldn't do. But there's a fine line between that and them actually coming out and saying, like, oh, mommy, daddy, you guys having sex, and, like, where the heck did you learn that? Unless you obviously talk about, like, oh, hey, let's go have sex, babe, or something, I don't really see them picking anything like that up out of the ordinary. Emotional signs are resuming behaviors that they've outgrown, like, sucking their thumb. Because I know sucking, children who suck thumbs, it's like a comfort to them. And if your child used to do it when they were younger and then all of a sudden, like, they start doing it again, then again, there's a good chance that they could be being sexually abused, and they are using that as their comfort to try and avoid emotionally what has happened to them. Nightmares or fear of being alone at night. Nightmares are, one of the worst things that somebody who has been sexually abused has to go through, because it's almost like reliving, the abuse over and over again. And I know even to this day, I still have nightmares about it. And, sometimes it's really tough. Like, I'll just wake up in the middle of the night and I'll have, I'd have been crying in my sleep, and I'm almost 30. And definitely the fear of being alone at night, because a lot of abuse happens at night when others aren't, are sleeping, or, this child lives with, an abuser at night. And so being, afraid of being alone at night could be a good indication that somebody is sexually abusing them. Excessive worry or fearfulness. Children have, like, a carefree mentality. Like, they don't, have, a care in the world. Like, they're outgoing, they're, optimistic. They're like, yes, let's try new things. They're excited. But if you notice that, like, your child starts to, like, worry about things, like worry about going, certain places, or, things like that, or they're very, very fearful, then there is a good chance that they are being sexually abused. Okay, now on to signs that an adult may be hurting a child. Keeping children safe can be challenging since many perpetrators who sexually abuse children are in a position of trust. And again, that falls in the category of, children knowing, loving, and trusting a person who is abusing him, and that 93% of 18 and under who are abused are by someone that they really, really know, somebody close, like within the family, or just with and outside the family, like a friend and things like that, which I went over a lot yesterday and today. But one of the other things that I want to express that I didn't really talk about is your children could even be sexually abused by your child's friends' parents. And, it does happen, and it's, happen often. We might not hear about it as much, but children go to sleepovers and they are sexually abused by the parents of the friend. Or it even could be a sibling, like a brother or something, or a sister of, that said friend. And, sexual abuse doesn't discriminate. It happens to boys and it happens to girls. I know that, chances of it happening to girls is a lot higher than boys. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen to them. So, even if you have a son and you're like, oh, that's not going to happen to him, you always have to remember that sexual abuse does not discriminate based on gender or age or race. I can't express enough how you can think that you know somebody so well, and it just comes back to, like, do you really know who you are leaving your children with? Because, we don't really know who we are leaving our kids with, but we are trusting our children to people in hopes that nothing bad is going to happen to them. And I don't want to say that it's going to happen to every child, but just because you don't think that it's going to happen to your child doesn't mean that it isn't. And I would never, wish it upon anybody's child to have to go through, sexual abuse, but don't set yourself to a high, standard that it's not going to happen to your child. You always have to remain vigilant, because the second that you let your guard down, is right around the time that those perpetrators will try to swarm in and, abuse your children. And you'll be sitting here thinking, oh, that's not happening to my child. But just, stay alert, make sure you know who your children are with, ask them if they feel comfortable going there. Make sure you discuss what sexual abuse is with them, and let them know that, it's not okay. Make sure you're teaching them good touch, bad touch at a very young age. And I am talking the time that they start to talk, drilling it into their heads that nobody should ever touch you in your private area with their mouth, their fingers, their private area, that it's not okay just to touch or rub anywhere that they don't, that they shouldn't. And, it's just, we got to be pounding it, into our children's minds and into our minds that, we need to be pushing the issue more, because that is the biggest problem with sexual abuse is children are not understanding what is happening to them. And it makes it all the more confusing. But if our children are aware, and we are aware of our children's surroundings and everything like that, like, the better chance that we have at avoiding our children being sexually abused and letting perpetrators just walk in and think, they'll never believe it. They'll never believe that I'm doing that. because in their mind, what they're doing to children is not wrong. To an extent, they may think like, man, if I get caught, I'm probably going to get in trouble. But they take that risk. They take the risk to hurt our children, knowing that they could face consequences. And that's the sad part. But be cautious of an adult who spends time with children and exhibits the following behavior. And I'm going to express these so much because, there can be indicators on this list that you have noticed with certain people who are around your children. And there could be a great sign. They might not be abusing your child, but there could be a great sign that they have abused children in the past, or they are currently abusing somebody else's child. And we have to be aware for them too. We have to speak up for them too. While we need to speak up for our children, we need to make sure that we are speaking up for all children. All children need to be spoken up for, and we need to be their voice because they do not have one. Bottom line, they don't have a voice. They don't have a say in anything. They don't know what is happening to them, and they're just emotionally, mentally, and physically drained. Okay. If a person does not respect boundaries or listen when somebody says no, no is no. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't even care if it is just a hug. If a child says no, do not force your child to hug that person or kiss that person because, 10 to 1, a child is not going to feel comfortable with that person, and then you're making them think that it is okay to allow somebody to, engage with them even though they said no. And that is something that, a lot of parents make mistakes with is, okay, a family friend comes over and, they want to hug your child, and your child's like, no, and be nice and give them a hug, or be nice and give her a hug, or don't be rude. Like, you're teaching your children that it's okay for somebody to do something to them even though they said no. Engages in touching that a child or a child's parents have indicated is unwanted, which again would go with, the no boundary. If a child says no, then a child means no. Obviously, except, little kids who just starting to talk and all they know how to say is no. You will definitely know that there is a big difference between that and a child actually meaning no. I mean, if we can say no, if we're being sexually assaulted, even by a grown man while we're adults, and we say no, and they're liable to be charged with sexual assault or rape or anything like that, there ain't no difference with a child. When they say no, it means no. Engages, okay, no, I already wrote that one. Tries to be a child's friend rather than filling an adult role in the child's life. So the best way I can explain this is somebody who wants to be more of your child's friend, wants to engage in a way that, another child would with your child. If a man or a woman is, trying to, talk to your child like, hey, let's go play, let's, you're my friend, you're my good friend, like, I'm your friend, they're probably child molesters. And I'm not, trying to accuse anybody who's just overly nice to children as child molesters, but in this day and age, you just never know. You just never know. does not seem to have age appropriate relationships. If a grown man is trying to, or even just an adult, an 18 or older is trying to engage in sexual activity with somebody who is younger, that is a good indication that if they are not already, they could potentially be, a predator of sexual, assault on children. And where I'm from in Michigan, the legal age of, consent for sex is 16, which to me makes no sense. If you can't even vote legally until you are 18, you should not be allowed to consent to something happening to your body at the age of 16. And they wonder why we have so many teens becoming teen moms. I'm 16. I can have sex with whoever I want. Don't matter how old they are. I'm legally old enough to have sex. You can't even buy a pack of cigarettes at 18. Like, come on now. Let's not, subject our children to thinking that it's okay to have sex at 16. And we need, in Michigan, definitely to raise that age. Raise that age of consent. Raise it to 18. And we don't even have, the Romeo and Juliet laws and things where, children, say a 17, somebody who's 16, having sex with a 14-year-old could be charged with statutory rape, but if another 14-year-old and a 14-year-old are having sex, I mean, it's either charge them both or you can't charge either of them. So, I mean, engaging in consensual sex at the age of 14, that shouldn't be okay either, whether they both wanted it or not. I don't know, it's just crazy. Somebody who talks with children about their personal problems or relationships. And I'm not talking like, your child having a boyfriend and, the boyfriend breaking up with your daughter and you questioning, what happened. I'm talking about going more in depth. Like somebody who is a sexual predator is going to want to know about all of their personal problems, all of their relationships. And what they're doing is they're grooming your child into trusting them. And then eventually trying to turn that trust into love. And then eventually turning that love into sexual assault because, your child, they know that your child is vulnerable. Oh my God, I cannot speak today. Vulnerable. Spends time alone with children outside of their role in the child's life or makes up excuses to be alone with your child. No adult should, I get, you have father-son outings, mother out, son, that's normal. Like you want to spend time with your child and you want to, have one-on-one time with them. But I am talking like an excessive amount of somebody wanting to spend time with their child outside of the role of being, the child's parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, siblings and things like that, straight, family friends. And anybody who wants to be alone with your child that is an adult is just, it's a little weird and probably are a predator, and they're going to start grooming your child and start sexually assaulting them if they already are not. Okay. Somebody who expresses unusual interest in child's sexual development, such as commenting on sexual characteristics or sexualizing normal behaviors. So if, say, so-and-so's 13-year-old daughter is going through puberty and somebody comments, oh, wow, her boobs are getting big. You should never talk about a child that way. Like, that is wrong. And, yeah, that could be a good sign that they might be a perpetrator. If somebody gives your child gifts without an occasion, like a birthday party or Christmas or Easter, Valentine's, things like that, or if there's no reason for it, then there's a good chance that they are going to start teaching your children that they're paying really special and close attention to them. So your children are gonna, start to feel special by this person. And again, that is just another form of grooming your child into, what could potentially be sexual abuse. Spends a lot of time with your child or another child, So if somebody is spending time with, your children or like your sister's child, like, say it's I don't want to, target men here because women do sexually assault children as well. But say like, an uncle's paying close attention to your child and also like your sister's child, like just them two, and you have other kids, but they're flowering these ones more than like what they are with others, then, there's a good chance that they are possibly, if not already, going to sexually abuse your child. So these are definitely some things to watch out for. And, if you know of anybody or if anything that I have mentioned has happened to you or happened to your child or happened to somebody else's child, or if, you're just anybody in general that knows any child who is displaying any kind of this, or if you know anybody who is, showing these warning signs of possibly, sexually abusing children, then I would, definitely speak with somebody. Definitely try and get to the bottom of it, because if you already have some sort of suspicion, then there is a very, very good chance that it is happening. And like I said earlier in the video, not telling is better than telling, or isn't better than telling. And if something, okay, wait, I got that confused. Sorry. Telling is better than not telling, even if it comes down to, there actually ain't anything happening. Or, the investigation is done and it doesn't show anything. Or if any child has ever relied on you to, tell you what is happening to them, make sure you report it. And that's like the number one thing that I can express is, report it. Because without you, a child could be living like me, and having to be abused every night, almost every day that I was in my dad's care, I was sexually abused. And for a long time, like I said, roughly 8 years. And if somebody would have just paid a little more attention, and if something would have been done about it when I was younger, I wouldn't have had to go through this. And so, you will be somebody's hero, and you'll feel great about it. So thank you. Hope you enjoy the video.